I gonna get canceled for saying that? What's up, everyone? My name is Chris. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we would do a video about some books that I really liked, but they were not popular on booktube, like, at all. I mean, people really hated these books and I really liked them. So we're gonna jump right in. And I'm gonna start off with the one that anyone who knows me is gonna expect to be on this list, and that is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This book was pretty much universally hated by everyone on booktube. The only other people that I know of that did not absolutely hate this book, and even liked it, were Bree at Locked Booktition and Olivia at Olivia Reads a Latte. So if you did not know, this book follows our main character, Charlie. She is going through some major stuff. Her college roommate was murdered by a serial killer on campus, and she wants to get the hell out of Dodge. She doesn't want to wait for the holidays. She just wants to go. She can't deal, understandably so. So she hitches a ride with this guy named Josh. She found him through, like, their college bulletin board, essentially. And Charlie, she has some problems, it seems like, maybe rooted in some past trauma, where she has these movies in her mind. That's what she calls them. And sometimes the line between reality and these quote-unquote movies gets a little bit blurred, and she can't always tell what's real and what's not. This makes her a very unreliable narrator. But anyway, she gets in the car with this Josh guy, and after a while of them driving on these deserted roads, she starts thinking that maybe he's not. Sir. This is highly inconvenient. So after a few hours with Josh in the car, she starts thinking that maybe he's not who he said he was. And in fact, he may be this serial killer that's been at large on campus. Goes through their journey together in this sort of tense situation where she's not even sure she can trust her own mind. She doesn't know that she can trust Josh. And, you know, what is she gonna do? Is he the killer? So one of the main criticisms was that our main character, Charlie, makes a lot of stupid decisions. And she does. But I think we need to factor in that this book is set in the 90s when people were a lot less careful, a lot less cautious. People were a lot more trusting and kind of foolish at times, a little bit more reckless. And I think to an extent, it's a little bit more understandable in that context of it being the 90s. And this hypervigilance that came after 9/11 and the advent of the 24-hour news stream, there were also a lot of criticisms about the depiction of mental health. So I cannot speak to the specific experiences of our main character. I will leave that to people who have more knowledge. Based on pure entertainment value, I give this a 4-star. The first half in particular I thought was spectacular. It got my adrenaline pumping. I was actually anxious with the scenes of Charlie and Josh in the car. The second half almost lost me. Like, that seemed like a detour that we didn't really need. I thought it was kind of strange and out of place. So the third section, before the epilogue, really reeled me back in after a less than stellar middle section. I really loved the big reveal, the big twist. I had jokingly kind of guessed it in the beginning, but in a sort of, haha, wouldn't it be so weird if this person ended up being the killer? And then at the end there, it's like, oh shit, they actually are. The epilogue, I pretend doesn't exist. The epilogue and that section in the middle is why it's a 4-star, not a 5-star. There's a lot of hate for this one. A lot of people really do not like it. I thought it was a fun ride. It was an adrenaline rush for me. I kind of think of this book as an episode of Criminal Minds, which if you know me, you know I'm obsessed with Criminal Minds. Like, it's my only personality trait. I kind of liken it to the opening scene of an older episode of Criminal Minds where we get a glimpse of the unsub and a victim. Except in this, obviously, that's the whole book. And I won't lie, I kind of was digging that. Is it the best thriller that I've ever read? No, not really. But it was highly entertaining. It felt like a movie. And I think that's what Riley Sager was going for. And so honestly, in my mind, mission accomplished. The next one is a romance. This is The Ex-Hex. I saw a few more people that liked this than liked Survive the Night, but I did see a lot of people who definitely did not like this. It was a 2-star or less for them. I saw a lot of people DNF it. So this book follows Vivian and Reese. So about a decade ago, Vivian and Reese had a whirlwind relationship that went really sour. It did not end well. And Vivian is a witch. She has some magic. And she got drunk and cursed him, kind of jokingly. She didn't think it would actually work. Spoiler alert, it did. So a decade later, he comes back to her hometown and finds out that he is cursed. And that's a huge problem because his family is kind of responsible for making sure that the magic in this town stays intact, or else, like, things will go really, really bad. If the magic in this town isn't preserved, then the town is essentially destroyed. So, despite the fact that there are still a lot of unresolved feelings, Vivian and Reese have to work together to save the magic and save the town. And in the process, they may or may not reignite their romance. So a lot of the criticisms that I've seen about this book are that it felt too insta-lovey and that people thought that it wasn't realistic, that these two people could still have such strong feelings about and for each other after a decade when they were only dating for such a short time. And that is how I found out that not all of us had a crazy whirlwind romance that ended really badly at like 19. I guess I was the only one that had that. So obviously, for personal reasons, this really resonated with me. So aside from the fact that this literally did happen to me, minus the happy ending, which is neither here or there, I also just thought that it was a cute romance. I am a Halloween girly. I was born in October, really close to Halloween. I am obviously a Caucasian, and sometimes the stereotypes are true. I love fall. I love Halloween. Though, even though this book was not for everybody, it really was for me. I believe I rated it 5 stars. And, you know, it did what it needed to do for me. Next, we're going to talk about another one that's kind of polarizing, and that is the Final Girls support group. I know a lot of people said that this was really disappointing for them. They didn't really like it. There's also a lot of very valid criticisms about Grady Hendrix, and I'm not here to dispute any of that. My personal experience with this book, I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I guess I can kind of see why this would be disappointing to people, especially if you went in thinking that you were getting a slasher. I feel like this is more of a tribute to slashers and a little bit satirical. It plays on a lot of tropes of the genre, but it's also kind of tongue-in-cheek at times. Another criticism that I see is that people found the main character, Lynette, annoying. Holy shit. I did not give a description again. So this book follows Lynette. She is a real-life final girl, and she is traumatized. She spent her adult life safeguarding herself and trying to ensure that what happened to her never happens to her again. and it's made her a recluse. It's made her kind of neurotic, very neurotic. It's made her very neurotic. But her overabundance of caution has come at a cost. It's cost her relationships with others. It's cost her peace of mind. It's cost her the ability to live a normal life. So Lynette also goes to this support group for final girls, hence final girls support group. And these women don't always get along so well. So we meet the group of final girls at a time when the group is starting to sort of splinter and fall apart, for lack of a better word. And everything kind of gets put to the side when one of them winds up murdered. And it quickly becomes apparent that somebody is out there trying to pick off all the final girls, and they need to find out who did it as well as try and stay alive. Another criticism that I see a lot is that Lynette is very annoying. She's very neurotic. I mean, yeah, she's traumatized. What do you expect? She watched her whole family get killed right in front of her and then almost got killed herself. Like, I think that would make anybody a little bit nuts. I do think we see some growth, though, over the course of the book with Lynette. And honestly, I just think of this book as a fun ride. It's not really a straight up slasher. It's kind of satirical. It's kind of funny. It's very fast paced, I think, and I really enjoyed it. Up next, we have another Riley Sager book, and that is The House Across the Lake. This book follows Casey. She is an actress. One might argue that she is a washed up actress. She struggles with alcoholism. She wasn't necessarily a child star, but her mother was also a very famous actress, and Casey followed in her footsteps. Casey is also still reeling from the sudden death of her husband, the greatest love of her life, which has only exacerbated her drinking problem. We start the book at the point where Casey's drinking has gotten so out of control that her mom basically stages an intervention and says, you're going to spend some time out at this cabin that's been in our family for years, and you're going to get your shit together. Obviously, being an alcoholic, that doesn't necessarily work for Casey. She still manages to get her hands on some alcohol. She spends her days drinking and spying on her neighbors across the lake. So one day, as she's spying on her neighbors, Tom and Catherine, she notices that Catherine is drowning and rescues her and saves her life, and it begins an unlikely friendship. Things quickly start to unravel when one night Casey is drinking and spying on Tom and Catherine. She hears a scream from the house across the lake. The next morning, there is no trace of Catherine, and Tom is acting really weird. So Casey kind of involves herself, trying to figure out what happened to Catherine, and soon it becomes apparent that everything is not as it seems. This is another one of Riley Sager's that a lot of people did not like. I think Olivia, once again, is one of the only people I've seen that has gone on the record as actually liking this one. I really liked it too. There's a lot of criticism about the depiction of alcoholism in this, which is valid. I can't tell anybody that their experience isn't valid, but I've also seen people say that the depiction is realistic. And I think that kind of just goes to show that no two experiences are exactly alike, even with the same disease. Another criticism that I've seen is that this book is boring, nothing happens. I sort of disagree. I think that the build-up and the tension is part of what I enjoyed about this book. I've also seen a lot of people say that they didn't like the supernatural element, and while that wasn't my favorite, I didn't hate it. I did think that the ending kind of dragged on. There was a moment toward the end where I thought things had wrapped up really nicely. We were going to be cruising towards the epilogue because Riley Sager loves his epilogues, and then more happened, and I was like, oh shit, we're not done, I guess. So that felt a little bit unnecessary. I feel like that could have been cut and condensed a little bit. But overall, this was another 4-star for me. And then the last book I want to talk about is a YA thriller, and it is None Shall Sleep. This book follows teenagers Emma and Travis. Emma is the survivor of a serial killer, and Travis has aspirations of becoming a U.S. Marshal. This book takes place in the early 80s when the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was still very new. Profiling as a science was still new. They were still gathering a lot of data on serial killers and their behavior to come up with credible methods of understanding the mind of a serial killer and use that understanding to stop them from killing again. Emma as the survivor of a serial killer and Travis as a hopeful for U.S. Marshal are both recruited to study and interview juvenile offenders, teenage serial killers. Things get tricky when they are called to work on an active case and they must enlist the help of a notorious teenage serial killer named Simon. One of the biggest criticisms I've seen of this book is that it is basically a ripoff of The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. I'm still in the process of reading The Silence of the Lambs, so I cannot give a fully informed opinion on that. However, from what I've read, I think it would be more accurate to say that this is a YA retelling of The Silence of the Lambs. Another criticism I see is that it's very unrealistic, to which I say, yeah, duh, the FBI is not actually going to recruit teenagers. Which maybe other people have a harder time suspending their disbelief than I did. I was not going into this book expecting it to be super realistic. I wanted to read something that gave me the same feeling that watching an episode of Criminal Minds or Mindhunter did, and this book fit the bill. Another criticism is that Emma makes a lot of stupid mistakes, to which again I say, yeah, duh, she's a teenager. I was one. Teenagers are not known for their great decision-making skills. Similar to Survive the Night, this is also set several decades ago when things were very different and people were a lot more trusting and didn't always make the greatest decision. Another criticism I saw was that the writing wasn't very good, which is subjective. Honestly, I've read way worse writing. This is not the worst written book I've read by far. All in all, I think that this book is a fun ride. I thought the climax of this book was extremely high energy, action-packed. It got my adrenaline pumping, and it was surprisingly gory. Like, it was a little bit gruesome, and I wasn't quite expecting that. This is a book that I file under, was it a 5-star read? No. Objectively, no. Was it a 5-star experience? For me, yes, it was. Alright guys, that is it for the books that BookTube hated that I loved. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Comment your thoughts down below. Did you agree with me, disagree, or if there's a book that you really enjoyed that wasn't well received? I'll catch you in another video. Bye!